Hello, I'm Darlene Young from Arlington. I'm here to welcome you to a new series that will appear on CAT TV from time to time over the next few months. The title of the show is Mindful Health Alternatives. The goal of the series is to introduce you to a more healthy and less stressful lifestyle through several different methods. Invitations have been extended to several practitioners of holistic or alternative medicine pathways, including nutrition, cleansing, shamanism, astrology, reflexology, energy, Reiki, herbal and Chinese medicine, chiropractic, and hypnotherapy, to include a few, or to name a few. Our first guest today is Renee Tasson, who is a health and cleanse coach from North Adams, Massachusetts. Welcome, Renee.
Hi, thanks.
We're glad you could be with us today, and we'd like you to start by telling a bit about yourself and how you became involved in this type of work.
Great. Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate being here.
Thank you.
I live in North Adams, and 3 years ago I was diagnosed with celiac disease. And celiac disease means that gluten is toxic to my body. Okay, and so 3 years ago I got diagnosed with this disease. For at least 8 years I can track back to me being very ill. So I can trace back at least 8 years of symptoms. And because I didn't know what was going on, I was going to different doctors and they couldn't figure out what was going on. My symptoms just kept getting worse and they kept compounding into new symptoms. And I didn't know they were all related. You know, we tend to kind of say, well, I'm tired because my schedule's crazy, you know, my joints ache because I worked out yesterday, you know, and you know, we kind of just blame things on our genetics and everything. So we don't realize sometimes that they're actually all connected. So I ended up one weekend, I ended up in the emergency room and they did an emergency colonoscopy and endoscopy, and come to find out a few days later, the doctor told me I had celiac disease. And at the time, I'd never heard of it before. I didn't even know what gluten was at the time, so I didn't believe him. I actually told him he was off his rocker. And I didn't believe that my problem was food. And he urged me to go gluten-free. He said my insides were extremely damaged and I needed to go gluten-free right away. So I told him I would try it for a week. And I said to him, after the week, I'll be back and we'll do more tests. We can figure out what's really going on with me. And I started gluten-free diet on a Monday, and by Thursday, all my symptoms were gone. I had transformed into a completely different person. My husband didn't recognize me. Wow. I had all this energy, and all my symptoms were gone. And I couldn't believe. That was my first aha moment of, wow, food really makes a difference with how we feel. And then it just kind of all snowballed from there. I started doing a lot of research on celiac disease. I found it very fascinating. And in the meantime, I was working here in Bennington as the general manager of 4 newspapers, one of them being the Tri-State Penny Saver, the weekly newspaper here in town. And I had done that for 7 years, loved my job. But I kept just getting pulled in this direction of the food and nutrition, but doing a lot of research, and it just kind of snowballed.
Sure. Now, what kind of foods were you eating that had the gluten in them?
Well, I was drinking beer. I was eating a lot of pasta, a lot of bread, a lot of crackers, things like that. And everything has gluten. So salad dressings, it's on, you know, the envelopes when you look envelopes, it's in medicine. So I was getting it in a lot of places.
So it's even on envelopes?
Yes.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize that. Now, with the celiac disease, you said you were having like joint symptoms and you were tired?
I was extremely fatigued. When I was working, I had an office here in Bennington and one in Manchester, and every night on my way home, I would have to stop, pull over my car, and nap because I couldn't even make it home without falling asleep. I had just extreme fatigue where you just, it's a different kind of fatigue. It's not like sleepy tired, it's like moving my body is tired. And I would just sit in the chair, and you know, my husband is 8 years older than me, and he would be buzzing around the house, and I'd be like, how do you have all this energy? I'm younger than you and I can't even get out of this chair. So that was one of my symptoms that just kept getting progressively worse and worse. But I had lots. I had mouth sores that didn't go away. I had a body rash that wouldn't go away. I had extreme bloat. I kept gaining weight uncontrollably. I gained like 40 pounds in a matter of 10 months.
Wow.
And it, you know, you look and you say, okay, well, I'm not eating any different than I was before. Why am I gaining all this weight? But Come to find out, it was from celiac disease. So I had a lot of kind of odd, I didn't have the normal symptoms, if there are normal, because there's over 125 symptoms for celiac disease
Really?
or
That
gluten
many?
intolerance.
Wow.
It ranges anywhere from something as simple as bloating to liver disease. My brother actually has celiac, and his liver failed. He was in a coma for 5 weeks, but and everything in between. And the average person has 5 to 9 symptoms. So that's why it's very hard to be diagnosed, because it's such a wide range of symptoms. But mine were very strange. Mine were kind of odd symptoms, which made it even more difficult to diagnose.
So when you saw the doctor in the emergency room and he decided that he was going to, give you a different diet, what happened after that? You said like a week later you were a totally different person.
Well, first of all, it's very overwhelming. The whole thing of, I don't get overwhelmed easy, but this was overwhelming to me. I had no idea, not knowing what gluten was and knowing it was everywhere. It was very difficult at first. So I sat down with a nutritionist, and that helped a little bit, and really just started reading a lot, trying to get my hands on everything. And when I went gluten-free, see, there's a whole thing, like when you go gluten-free, it's not just the food that you eat, but it's also the cross-contamination of things. So the doctor was telling me, or the nutritionist was telling me, I needed, a new toaster and a new strainer and new pots and pans, and I was like, I'm not doing all that. This is crazy. And but it really does make a difference. So I went gluten-free on a Monday, kind of cut out all gluten. And what I did, because, and this is what a lot of people do, when you get diagnosed with this celiac disease, you want to feel normal like everybody else. So I ran out to every store and ran to their gluten-free section, and I loaded up on the Cheetos and the cereal and the gluten-free pasta and the breads, and I had my own cupboard. It was stacked with all the food that I wanted to have to feel normal like everybody else. Yeah. And went gluten-free and just immediately saw changes. It was instant. I mean, within 24 hours, the bloating went away, and then the mouth sores went away, and then the body rash went away. The fatigue was gone in, 2-3 days. It was just amazing, really amazing.
I mean, it just sounds like it's incredible.
It really is. I couldn't believe it. And actually, out of them all, the body rash is what motivates me to never go near gluten again, because the celiac rash, it's actually called hepatitis dermatitis.
Really?
And it is the worst rash ever. You just want to itch yourself to death. And right before I got diagnosed, I had gone to see a doctor, and I looked her square in the eye and I said, if you do not find out what's causing this rash, I'm jumping off a bridge, because it's the worst. It keeps you up at night. You want to just itch yourself to death. It's the worst rash ever. And that's what motivates me really to not go near gluten, is that rash. The other things too, but the rash is the biggest thing.
Okay.
And only about 10% of the people that have celiac actually get the rash. So not only do I have to be careful of the food that I eat, I have to make sure all my shampoo and lotions and soaps, that all that stuff is gluten-free as well.
Oh, so it's found
everywhere.
It's found in like shampoos.
Absolutely.
Wow, I didn't
It's
realize
everywhere.
that.
Toothpaste. It's everywhere. Vitamins, supplements, medicines. They use it as filler. So it's just in everything. It's everywhere. It's everywhere. And the reason that is, I don't know if you want me to get into it, but the reason, there's a whole reason of why there's this explosion of food allergies, and gluten being one of the most common ones nowadays. But the simple answer is that it's because they're putting it in everything, and humans are not meant to eat gluten. It's really made for cows. It's a wheat. And cows have 4 stomachs, so they're able to digest it by the time it gets to the 4th stomach. We only having 1 stomach, we're not able to digest it. And when they first started using gluten or wheat, they started using it just in pasta and bread, because it's what holds it together. And when we were only getting a little bit of it, our bodies could deal with that. It was just a once in a while kind of thing. It wasn't over, doing it or anything. So our bodies could kind of handle it. Well, years ago, the government started subsidizing wheat, corn, and soy. And when they did this, all the farmers started growing wheat, corn, and soy, because it was free money from the government. Well, when they did that, that brought the surplus of these things way up, which drove the price way down. And when they drove the price down, all the companies processing our food said, we need to find a way to use wheat, corn, and soy, because it's so inexpensive.
Okay.
And what they noticed was when they started using the wheat in the food or the gluten in the food is it's very addictive. So people started buying more of their products.
Okay, so the more you ate, the more you
bought,
wanted.
and the more,
Okay.
yeah. So, so that's why they started using it in everything, and that's why it's everywhere, and it's a filler, and it holds things together, and it's addictive. And then they found out that soy is a preservative, so they could keep things on the shelf longer. So they started putting soy in everything, and corn as well. Corn, they noticed that corn makes everything taste nice and sweet, like high fructose corn syrup. So people started buying more product. So once they found out these things, they started using these 3 items in everything. And if you walk into a supermarket and you pull any processed food off the shelf, I guarantee it's going to have some form of wheat, soy, or corn, or a combination of 2, or maybe even all 3. And it's just so much for our bodies to handle. Our bodies really can't handle it. And that's why there's this explosion of food allergies, with gluten being a very, like I said, a very common one.
Okay, so is there like gluten-free flour that you can
Yeah, there
use
is,
to bake with
but here's the problem, because a lot of people automatically think, I'm going to go gluten-free and I'm going to lose weight and I'm going to feel great and be healthy and all that stuff. Well, when they take the gluten or the wheat out of these things like breads or pastas and things like that, well, like I said, it's what holds those things together.
Right.
So they're taking one item out of that product, and in order to make up for that one very important item, they have to put 10 items in to make up for that one item.
Okay.
So that's why #1 gluten-free products are so expensive. You'll go bankrupt if you buy gluten-free products.
Right.
And that's why things like, if you were to hold up a loaf of bread, a regular loaf of bread, it's very light and fluffy. And if you hold up a loaf of gluten-free bread, it's like a brick.
Right.
And that's because there's so much stuff in it. So gluten-free products are not healthier. They are more processed. They have a lot more stuff in them. They're healthier because if you can't eat gluten, it doesn't have gluten. So it's healthier for those people that can't eat gluten. But it's really not healthy to be eating gluten-free products. So there are gluten-free flours, but the gluten-free flour, that one item doesn't match the gluten flour.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So they have to add the gluten-free flour and plus a bunch of other items to make up for it.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's just mind-boggling
It is.
when you really think about this.
It is, totally. And when I did that, when I went gluten-free, a few months into my gluten-free diet, I started getting sick again. And I couldn't figure out what was going on. And so I ended up doing a cleanse for myself. And through this cleanse, I found out that I was also allergic to soy. I can't eat nuts and seeds, and I stay away from corn because corn bothers me.
Okay.
So I have this whole, and I choose not to eat meat. So I'm very limited as to what I can eat. But and I feel great. I feel, even though I'm very limited as to what I can eat, I feel the best I've ever felt in my life, and I'm the oldest that I've ever been in my life. But it's really amazing to me, and the people that I deal with, it's really amazing to see how many illnesses and problems can go away just by changing what people eat. And I saw it firsthand with myself when I eliminated the gluten out of my diet and how great I felt. I mean, it's just amazing to see the connection between what we're eating, what we're putting in our bodies, and how we're feeling. And a lot of people don't, and like I didn't, a lot of people don't see that connection. They think that they were born with this body, and due to genetics and just their way their body is, that they have to deal with certain illnesses. And it's not true. The body always knows how to heal itself. It knows what to do. It's a matter of giving the body the proper tools so that it can heal, because it can't do it on its own.
Right.
So it's all in you giving the proper tools to your body to allow it to heal.
Wow. So why are more and more people getting food allergies, and what causes them, and how do people know if they have an allergy or an intolerance to a certain food?
Good question, good question. So the most common ways of testing to see if people have a food allergy is doing what they call the prick test or a blood test, okay? Those are the most common ways of testing. Anytime somebody comes in to see me and they walk in with their sheet of all their results from their allergy testing, and it says that they're allergic to strawberries and peaches and spinach and eggs and, you know, this whole list. People walk in frantic, like, oh my gosh, what am I going to eat? Okay, well, if you honestly, from what I've researched, if you were to go every day and get either the prick test or the blood test, if you do that every day for 14 days, it'll show you are allergic to every single item, okay? Food and environmental. It really matters. What offsets those is what you've eaten that day, okay? So it's what's in your system at the time that can really kind of change the results of those tests. So for me, I say the best way to find out if you have a problem with food is by eliminating it, like I did with the gluten. And you'll see, in any food, you eliminate it for 2 weeks and you'll know if you have an issue with it. And the ones to start with first are the allergen foods. There are 8 allergen foods, and they are the first ones to start with because those are 99% of the time the issue, the reason people have health issues is because of those allergen foods. And those are things like gluten and dairy and soy and corn and nuts, you know, things like that. So you want to eliminate those first, or maybe not all of them, but you want to eliminate which ones you think might be doing it. And when people say, geez, I just can't target what it is that's bothering me. Well, as I said, if gluten, soy, and corn are in everything you eat, yeah, it's very easy. It's very difficult to target because they're in everything. So it's hard to say, well, okay, today this thing bothered me, but then tomorrow I eat this thing and this is something totally different, but this bothers me too. Well, it's because, you know, those things are in everything. So they can be very hard to target. Dairy is a little bit easier. You know, people know kind of when they're eating dairy, and it's not in a lot of processed food. I mean, it is, but it's not as prevalent as some of the others. So dairy is a little bit easier. Nuts are a little bit easier. But when it comes to gluten and soy, it gets pretty challenging, or corn. It gets pretty challenging. But the best way to do it is by eliminating the problem. And the reason that there are, like I said, there's explosion. I mean, when I was a kid, you know, if we had one kid in school that had a nut allergy, that was like a big deal. And now it's everybody you talk to has something. And it's exactly for the reason that I said earlier about they're putting all these things in the food and our bodies just can't handle it. And we've become a society where we are eating a ton of processed foods. That's all our diet consists of for most people, the average American. And that's because we're so busy. We do not have time. We are not in the kitchen preparing, you know, vegetables and stews and soups. We're putting, you know, Hot Pockets in the microwave because, and, you know, I'm feeding our kids toaster strudels for breakfast. And then we wonder, you know, why are the kids so hyper? Because we're feeding them, you know, Pop-Tarts and toaster strudels and then making them sit in front of a computer, you know, and not release their energy. So we've become a very packaged food, processed food society, which is really sad. You know, when I do my reading, I found out that just 100 years ago, the average American only consumed 5 pounds of sugar in a year. Now the average American today, 100 years later, consumes an average of 170 pounds of sugar a year.
Wow.
And that's because so much sugar is in our processed food. So most people are eating a lot of sugar and they don't even realize it because it's in all of the food that they're eating if they're eating processed foods. So
now,
it's
like
amazing.
when people are trying to get away from like processed sugars and stuff, or, you know, sugars and stuff like that, a lot of people will get into like diet sodas and stuff like that. And, you know, like I've heard that, you know, you really shouldn't be drinking diet sodas. There's something on the internet now about, you know, like the sweeteners and stuff that's in it, that it causes problems with people, almost like symptoms of MS, and, you know, like people are getting joint pains and stuff like that. And also there's a lot of sodium in diet soda as well. And a friend of mine said, you know, the best thing to do is just leave your Diet Coke, don't get it, you know, and just, you know, drink water. But it's like a lot of people, myself included, I don't know if it's the caffeine that's in it because I don't drink coffee. You know, I don't understand, you know, like where a lot of these are coming from, you know.
Yeah. Soda is like one of the most unhealthy things, diet or regular diet being worse, but it's like one of the worst things that we can be putting into our body. And if you never notice, I mean, what tells you that clearly is that when people stop drinking those things, they get headaches. You know, it's like addicted. Our bodies become addicted to this stuff, and it's just terrible. And our bodies don't, can't handle all that sugar. These sweeteners that they're using in these diet sodas, our bodies do not recognize those things. It's not natural food. You can't even call them food. They're food-like products that they're putting into our processed food. And our bodies do not recognize those things. And when the body doesn't recognize it, it doesn't know what to do with it. And so has a very difficult time trying to break it down. But the average American, we follow what they call the standard American diet. That's what they call our diet, which stands for SAD, okay? Coincidentally, Standard American Diet. And for most people, their day kind of looks like this. They can barely get out of bed in the morning. They keep hitting the snooze button. And for most people, the first thing they do is they have a cup of coffee. Right? And I tell people that is, you'd be better off running out your front door every day when you wake up in the morning and jumping into a pool of 30-degree water. That's a shock to your system. All night long we fast. We don't eat all night long. So we wake up in fasting mode, and the first thing we put into our body is all this sugar, caffeine, stimulants. It's a shock, okay? And then most people, because we stay in bed late, we don't have time for a good breakfast, so we're eating a half a bagels, we're running out the door, or grabbing a muffin while we're at Dunkin' Donuts. And then we work all day, and most people don't have time to really stop and eat during the day. Maybe they're eating a quick yogurt at their desk, but they don't have time to eat all day. So they go all day without eating. They've started their day off with a coffee or in a bagel, and then they don't eat all day long. They get home from work and they're starving, so they start eating the crackers and the chips while they're thinking about what they're going to make for dinner. And then a lot of times when they're cooking dinner, maybe it's a glass of wine, and then they sit down to the biggest meal of the day in the evening. And then after dinner, a lot of times people have to have a couple cookies or a little bit of ice cream, and then they go to bed and they can't sleep. And they wonder why they can't sleep. And if they were to look at everything they just put into their bodies all day long, the soda, the coffee, the processed sugars in our processed food, in our processed foods, all the junk, all the allergen foods and everything, that's why we can't sleep at night. And then a lot of people, they need something to help them help them sleep. They take something to help them sleep, and then they can't get up in the morning, so they need coffee to get them going, and it becomes this vicious cycle.
Wow.
And it's a matter of breaking that cycle. Starting your day off with a protein shake or a green smoothie, throw some vegetables and fruit into a blender and start your day off with that. Ease your body into the day after it's been fasting all night. It's one of the best things you can do instead of starting your day off that way. And even if you have those things a little bit later on in the day, not so bad. But at least starting your day off, easing your body into the day instead of jolting it with this, shocking it with this stuff.
I mean, what you're saying is, it makes perfect sense. I read someplace here a week or so ago in a magazine that breakfast is called, we call it breakfast, but it's really break
the fast. That's right.
So, instead of jolting yourself awake in the morning, it makes perfect sense to start with like a smoothie or a protein shake. Now, what would be in a typical smoothie or a protein shake?
Well, a protein shake, first of all, you want to find a good protein shake if you're going to drink. And protein shakes are wonderful. Everybody should have at least one of these every day, okay? But it can be a little challenging to find a good protein shake. People think that just because it's called a protein shake, it must be healthy. And it's not. A lot of protein shakes have a lot of processed items in them. They have an ingredient list this long. So first of all, you want to find a good protein shake, which has just a few ingredients, very little sugar, if any. 2 grams or less is really a good, kind of threshold. And very few ingredients, and the ingredients that are in it, you want to be whole food ingredients. So you want your protein shake to be made of maybe rice or flaxseed or hemp, something that's a whole food, not things like xanthan gum and sodium phosphate. I can't picture those things in my mind, okay? So that's the first thing. When you start your day off with a protein shake, it's great to throw it in a blender with some water and throw some fruit in it, just fruit. You don't need any vegetables in that. And that's a perfect way to start your day. Simple banana even, that's perfect. And then if you want to do a green smoothie a little while after that, Then the trick is always to add 2 cups of water in your blender, always, okay? So always start off by putting 2 cups of water in your blender. And I tell people to pick one vegetable. It doesn't matter what it is. It can be spinach, kale, carrots, cucumber, celery, doesn't matter. Pick one vegetable and just take a handful of that vegetable and throw it into the blender. And then you use up to 3 different fruits. So maybe it's 1 fruit, 2 fruit, or 3 fruits. So for an example, maybe the vegetable is spinach, and maybe you have that with strawberries, spinach and strawberries. Or maybe you have spinach, strawberry, and bananas. Or maybe you have spinach, strawberry, bananas, and blueberries, up to 3 fruits. And if you use that combination, it will always taste wonderful. And that's the trick. And I tell people, look, if you are not interested in changing your diet or really giving up coffee or giving up soda or anything like that, that's fine. If you just want to make one change, the best thing you can do is add in 1 smoothie a day into your diet. It is wonderful. And the reason of that is because when you drink a smoothie with vegetables and fruit, first of all, as I just said, if you have a good handful of vegetables, that's probably 2 servings of vegetables right there, and maybe you have anywhere from 2 to 6 servings of fruit, depending on, all right? Well, you would never sit down and eat that much, okay? So you're getting a lot of nutrients and vitamins in just a glass that you're drinking, okay? So you can get lots of good stuff in. The other reason is because all of those foods are broken down already. So when you drink a smoothie, your body literally doesn't have to do any work to digest it. It can automatically get the enzymes from that smoothie and send them to the places in your body that need it right away. It doesn't have to work for it. And that's why when you drink a smoothie, as you're drinking it, it's like you almost feel better as you're drinking it. It might not look pretty, so put it in a cup that you can't see the green, okay? Because it doesn't look pretty, but it tastes good, and it's filling. And your body doesn't have to do any work for it. So it's one of the best things you can do.
Now, is it better to have like the smoothie at room temperature or to have it cold?
That's a personal preference. I particularly like mine ice cold, so I throw some ice cubes in with mine. So it's purely just a personal preference. It doesn't make the drink any more or less nutritional either way. So it's all just preference.
So you start your day off with a protein shake or a smoothie. And like you're not, you're not full. What would a person have to follow up with that for like breakfast?
Some more fruit, some whole fruits would be great. Maybe some oatmeal, some wonderful oatmeal with some fruit in the oatmeal. If you eat eggs and if you eat animal products, then maybe a couple eggs in the morning to go with it is perfectly fine. I tell people, as I said earlier, your body's in fasting mode when you wake up. So the longer you can go, or the easier you can be on it in the morning, is the better. So I tell a lot of my clients to eat just raw until like noontime every day. Don't eat cooked foods. You eat stuff that has living enzymes in it, like fruit and things like that, and your protein shake and your smoothies, and eat fruit until noon. And then after that, have your, whatever, your cooked foods and anything you want after that. So that's always a good rule of thumb. But if you wanted to eat something warm, it's getting to be the cold weather, so maybe a little warm oatmeal. If you're not really too keen on oatmeal, you can always warm up some quinoa in the morning, and that makes a wonderful kind of warm cereal for people that don't really like the texture of oatmeal. And those are great ways to start your day.
Just to add like a quick tip for our viewers, when you go grocery shopping, what are you looking for when you're reading labels? And what are you looking for in the grocery store?
That is a great question, because you know what, they have us so confused. What is healthy for us? Everything on their on the box or the package says all natural. So does that mean it's good for me? It only has so much fat in it. Should I go fat-free, sugar-free, all natural? What do I do? It's very confusing. So I'll give you a couple really easy, very easy tips. I tell people, if you're going to buy processed foods, which the majority of your shopping cart should consist of things that do not have labels on them. So that means you're shopping down the vegetable, the produce aisle, going down the perimeters, the meat department, the seafood department, things like that. But the bulk of things in your cart should not even have a label on it. That's your best number one. But if you are going to buy processed foods, here's a couple just easy tips to follow. Very easy. I tell people not to look, don't even bother looking at anything on the package. Don't look at the calories, the fat. I don't care about any of of those things, okay? The only thing you need to look at is the ingredient list. And it's as simple as this. If it has more than 5 ingredients listed, you put the product back. You don't even buy it. Okay.
Wow.
So everything you buy with a label on it should have 5 ingredients or less.
Okay.
Of those 5 or less ingredients, if it has 3, 4 ingredients, whatever, you should at least be able to recognize those words. Okay. So as I said earlier, if it says xanthan gum and sodium phosphate, if you cannot picture that item in your head, then you shouldn't eat it. Because I say if it looks like a foreign language to you, then it's foreign to your body. Your body has no idea what to do with it. Okay. So you want to see words that you recognize, that you can at least picture what it is. So 5 ingredients or less, know what the words mean. And the last tip really is if you're going to buy processed food, I'll use the example of yogurt, okay? Say you're going to eat yogurt. Well, people think that all yogurt is pretty much the same. Well, it's not, okay? So any processed item you're going to decide to buy, you stand in front of that display, and I'm using yogurt as an example in this, but you can do it with anything. You pick up all the different brands of yogurt, and you're going to see some yogurts that have 3 ingredients and some yogurts that have 13 ingredients. You always buy you find the one with the least amount of ingredients and buy that. Do not buy it on brand, do not buy it on price, do not buy it on anything else other than the fact that it has the least ingredients out of all the other ones.
Wow.
And that is 3 easy rule of thumbs that anybody can follow, and very simple. You don't have to spend hours in the supermarket reading labels. You simply look at it, 5 ingredients or less, know what the words mean, and find the product that has the least ingredients out of the category that you're eating.
You know, it's wild because sometimes on commercials on television, and I'm sure you have noticed it too, they're always talking about animal foods like dog foods. You know, if this ingredient is in it, don't buy it. If this ingredient is in it, it's okay. But they don't do this with people food. You know, and it's like you said, I think that we get addicted to certain things. And, you know, like the cost and their fillers and everything. And it's just like what you said earlier, that we as a society are buying more and more and more of it.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and people think it's too expensive to eat healthy. They think, okay, if I can buy a box of macaroni and cheese for 99 cents, or I can buy a head of cauliflower for $3.99, then I can feed at least 1 or 2 of my kids with the macaroni and cheese, and so they think it's less expensive, but it's really not. And people come back to me and say that all the time, like, wow, I thought I was going to be spending more money, but I'm actually spending less because you're not spending all the money on all that junk. That, for all the processed foods that we buy, 75% of the money that it costs to buy that food, like say the macaroni and cheese for 99 cents, well, 75% of that 99 cents, 75 cents of it almost, goes to just the packaging, okay? So only the food inside is only worth 25 cents, okay? That can't be very good,
No,
all right?
no.
Cannot be very good. And I tell people, okay, yes, you might spend $3.99 on a head of cauliflower instead of 99 cents for a box of macaroni and cheese, but you're gonna save money on your prescriptions. You're gonna save money on going to the doctor's visit and your co-pays and things like that. So you may not see it in the front end, but you'll definitely see it in the back end.
It'll pay off
It'll
in the
pay
end.
off, absolutely.
Sure. Now, why is it important to give our bodies a break and to do cleansing?
That's a great question. A loaded question. Very important. People, first of all, when people think of cleansing, doing a cleanse like I did, I thought this when I first read up on them and did them. But you think of 4 things. You think you either have to starve yourself, you think you have to take a bunch of supplements and pills, you think you're going to be in the bathroom all day long, and you think that you have to drink magic potions to make you go to the bathroom.
Right.
And cleansing shouldn't be any of those things. People should be doing a nutritional cleanse that's based all around food. You don't need any of that other stuff. The reason that there are cleanses that have all these supplements and magic potions and everything is because there's no money to be made in cleansing. There is no money to be made in me telling you what you should eat. So in order for these companies to make money on cleanses, they have to sell you $300 and $400 worth of supplements and magic potions to make you believe that you need those products to cleanse your body. And you really don't. It's just all about the food that you're eating. But every single person should be cleansing at least twice a year, at least a minimum. And it's like giving your body a break, okay? And why, what I compare it to is bringing your car in for an oil change, okay? We do that every few thousand miles, right? What happens when we don't do it? The car breaks down.
Right.
And the same thing happens to our bodies. If we just keep putting the same foods and medicines into our bodies all the time and we don't ever give that a break, then our bodies start to break down too, okay? And for the women, I also compare it to deep cleaning our homes. And if you think about it, we do that twice a year, spring and fall.
Correct.
If we didn't do it this past spring, how are people feeling right now? They're feeling very overwhelmed. Things are starting to get very dirty in their house. Things are starting to pile up. They start throwing everything in a room. They shut the door. They can't deal with it.
Right.
And the body kind of does the same thing. If there's a lot for the body to deal with, high blood pressure, achy joints, fatigue, and all these things that the body has to deal with, it doesn't know what to do first. It starts to get confused. It starts to get overwhelmed. Things start to pile up. Things start to break down. So what cleansing is giving your body a break so that it can start working on those things that it just never gets around to. You know, it's just like us. You know, like I said, if we don't clean our houses, then things keep piling up, okay? And then yes, you clean them out and they might get dirty again. So yes, your body's going to build up again. But at least you did that clean out in the spring and the fall. If you didn't, it's stuff you just can't handle it.
So the cleanse itself gets rid of toxins or poisons in our bodies.
That's right.
And that have been building up because of the stuff that we're eating.
Yes, there are two main things that every person wants to accomplish during a cleanse. One of them is eliminating toxins, like you said, releasing toxins. Toxins are everywhere in our world, okay? They're in the air we breathe, they're in the food we eat, they're in medicines that we take, even vitamins have toxins in them. So all day long, we are putting toxins into our body.
Right.
The thing is, we don't think about them because we don't see them. So we kind of think that they don't exist, but they are everywhere. So by cleansing, you are eliminating these toxins out of the body, because again, if they build up, if somebody has too many toxins in their body, if they build up, they get depression, they get emotional problems, okay? So they get depression, they get anxiety, they get very irritable, they get mood swings, okay? That's all a sign of too many toxins. They also get like joint stuff, joint inflammation and fatigue. So those things kind of show that there are too many toxins in the body. The other thing that you want to accomplish during the cleanse is getting rid of some mucus that's in your body. People don't know it, but our bodies produce a mucus all the time, okay? And if we never clean out that mucus, then same thing, it starts to build up in our bodies. And what happens then? The body has to start shifting this mucus around to store it in places. And it goes to places like your lungs, so people get winded easy. They start getting asthma. They start getting respiratory issues. I had asthma my whole life. I was on 3 steroids every day for 23 years of my life. I would go to the emergency room 4 times a year every time the season changed, and they'd have to put me on prednisone for 10 days. Every time, 4 times a year for 23 years. And since I've been eating like this for the last 3 years, I'm off all 3 medications. I haven't had 1 treatment and not 1 dose of prednisone.
Wow,
and it's all because I got some of this mucus out. If a doctor told me 23 years ago I could either take these 3 steroids or I could eat this way to get the mucus out, I would have done it 23 years ago. But I just found out about this mucus when I started researching this stuff. So when somebody has too much mucus in their body, it affects their lungs. They get congested, they get sinus infections, acid reflux, heartburn, they get bathroom issues. It's all connected right here. And then the other problem that tends to show up when somebody has too much mucus is skin issues. They get eczema, they get hives, acne even, or dry skin. They start to have hair loss, things like that. Those are all signs that a person has too much mucus in their body. So the main reasons for cleansing is, number 1, to give your body a break so that it can tend to other things, okay? Number 2 is to get rid of the toxins, and number 3 is to get rid of the mucus. And if you don't do that, I guarantee you it's going to catch up with you.
You know, it's just mind-boggling, you know, just, like learning about all of these different things that, are, how do I want to say, brewing within us because of the things that we eat. It's just totally mind-boggling.
It is. The body is a very, very amazing machine. And I tell people the body knows how to heal itself, okay? The body knows what job it has to do, but it can't fulfill that job. It can't accomplish it and do that job if we don't provide it with the proper tools. So if we're feeding the body caffeine and sugar and all of these foreign items, ingredients. The body doesn't know what to do with those. It spends so much time trying to figure out what those things are that it can't deal with the normal stuff.
Yeah.
You know, and the body knows how to heal, but it's all about giving the body the proper tools. If you don't give it the proper tools, it cannot heal you.
Right.
Okay, so but it knows how to do it. It's just all a matter of giving it what it needs.
Sure. Now, why is protein so important to us?
That's a great question.
I have
too.
a couple of questions here, so
Wow,
it's just like,
I guess you do. That's great. Okay, so protein. All right. A lot of people are very hung up on protein. Anytime I have 1,800 people that have done the cleanse so far, and I can bet at least one person for every one of those 1,800 people have said to them during the cleanses, "Oh my gosh, where are you getting your protein? Where are you getting your protein?" People are so hung up on protein. The average person needs very little protein, anywhere from, depending on what the age and weight and male, female, the average person needs anywhere from 50 to 75 grams of protein a day. Okay, that's a very small amount. That's all we need. Well, the average American eats 3 times more protein than they need every single day.
Wow.
And people think that, well, if some protein is good, then more must be better. And it's not true, because the body cannot store protein. So if the body only needs 50 to 75 grams of protein a day, but we are giving it 150 to 225 grams of protein a day, then the body has to figure out how to get rid of that excess protein. And most common way that the body gets rid of it is through your urine. So it taxes the kidneys, it taxes the liver. Okay, this is every day. If your body has to try to get rid of this protein every day, and for the protein that it just can't get rid of, it turns to fat. Okay, so I always tell people, you know, when was the last time somebody went to the hospital because of lack of protein? It doesn't happen. You need very, very little protein. And people, when they think of protein, they think of chicken, they think of steak, they think of eggs. They don't think of vegetables. Every vegetable is made up of 20 to 45% protein. You do not need to get your protein from an animal. It is in beans, it is in nuts, it's in your vegetables. You don't need to get your protein from an animal. So, and you need very little of it. And people normally, once we cut back on their protein, is when they really start to feel good. And, you know, animal protein is very hard for our bodies to digest. When you eat any kind of red meat or chicken, it takes an average of 72 hours for your body to digest it. That is 3 days of that meat sitting in your system. Okay, and you think about it, inside our bodies it's 98 degrees, and that meat is sitting in there for 98 degree temperature for 3 days. That's not pretty, okay?
No.
So animal protein is very hard to digest. If you're getting your protein from your vegetables, your body, it's very easy for your body to digest those things. So it's much lighter on the body. People, and I do allow people to eat meat. I don't try to turn anybody to vegetarianism or veganism. I don't. If they're interested, then I will educate them, of course. But I do not push on anybody, and I allow people to eat it if they want it. But the majority of the people choose not to once they get going. They feel so good and light eating the way they're eating with the whole foods and the vegetables and the fruit and the grains, that once they get to the point where they can eat the meat, that most of them opt not to do it. And if they do, they're like, well, I feel much heavier. You know, I just feel slow, sluggish, and heavier. And that's because it's just so hard for the body to digest that stuff.
Right. Now, earlier, before we went on camera, you and I were talking about, you know, like people that come to see you. And something that you had said was that everybody is different, and everybody, depending on which pathway they want to follow, whether, you know, get away from gluten, or if they want to lose some weight, or, you know, different pathways. How would you treat someone that, you know, wanted to lose weight? You know, what would they follow in a day?
Right. So everybody's is different. I believe that it's not a one size fits all.
Okay.
Everybody's eating plan should be different. Some people should be away from gluten, and some people should be away from dairy, and some people should be away from sugar, should not be eating those things. For other people, you know, it might be something else, you know, and everybody is different. So if I have somebody that wants to lose weight, and I have people with all kinds of things, like I said earlier, cancer, diabetes, fibromyalgia, all kinds of stuff. Depression is a big one. But if somebody wants to just lose weight, then they would be eating a lot of whole foods. They'd be staying away from the processed stuff. They'd be staying away from some of the starchy things like potatoes and beans and things like that. They'd be you know, eating just a lot of whole foods and protein shakes and smoothies and things like that if they wanted to lose weight. And I'll tell you, the average time frame that somebody is on my plan is 21 days, 3 weeks. And that's because it takes that long to break a habit and that long to create a new habit. But in that 21 days, the average person will lose anywhere from 12 to 18 pounds. And I've had as much as 32 pounds lost. That's been the most in 21 days. But what's great is not so much the fact that people are losing so much weight, but they keep it off. And that's because the body's working much more efficiently than it was prior to them doing the cleanse program. So they are able to keep their weight off and then kind of go from there. And then, you know, and when you lose it that quickly, it's typically, you know, the average person, if they need to lose that much weight. Now, I have people that don't need to lose weight and they won't. But if they need to lose that much weight, then, you know, most people are losing anywhere from 1 to 3 pounds a day and pretty much every day. And when you're doing that, it's very motivating. That keeps people, you know, they're getting on the scale every day and they're like, wow, this is great, this is great. And it really keeps them motivated.
Right. Yeah. So is like the diets, do they like revolve around a calorie count?
No,
No?
no.
Because you hear so much about, you know, like, you know, to lose weight, you have to like be at 18 to 2,000
no, that is all
calories
baloney to me, yeah.
Okay.
I tell my people I don't want you counting calories, I don't want you counting points, I don't want you measuring anything. It is as simple as when your body tells you it's hungry, then you eat. And you eat as much as it takes for you to be satisfied. And there is no limit of you know, how much you eat. As long as you're eating what I tell you you can eat, and you can have as much as you want. You never should go hungry, ever, during this time. That's all, you know, I did all that. I was recently, you know, I recently did a cleanse myself. When you cleanse, you tend to want to like clean things, because once you get the inside of your body clean, you want like your surroundings to be clean as well. So people start cleaning out closets and drawers and cupboards and things. Well, I was cleansing and I was cleaning out a bureau, a drawer, all these drawers, and I got to one of the drawers and I found this big file. And I opened it up and inside was a whole year's worth, a sheet. Every single day I had logged every single food I was eating, what day of the week it was, the date that it was, all the calories and fats and protein. And I was writing every single thing down, adding it up at the end of the day. And at the bottom of the page, I would put my weight for that day. And I looked at the first page and flipped through, and my weight really, you know, pound here and there, maybe 2, never really moved much. And I did all that work, was restricting my calories, making sure I didn't go over too much protein, make sure I didn't go over too many carbs, restricting my calories. I did all that work writing everything down, adding things up, and I lost a couple pounds. And I'm like, this is crazy. I was overweight my whole life, all right, always. And when I started this process, I lost 40 pounds. And now weight is a non-issue for me. I know I am where my body wants to be. I am not like, my weight isn't jumping 6, 7 pounds in the course of a day like it used to. I'm not restricting. I'm never hungry. I don't feel like I'm deprived in any way. I feel very satisfied. I love eating. I love food. I always have. But I love what I am eating. I look at the plate when I'm eating, and it's so colorful and beautiful with all the vegetables, and they're so beautiful. I mean, it's just, and you're putting that in your body, and when you're putting those colorful, living, vibrant foods in your body, then the inside of your body feels living and vibrant and colorful. And so it's great. Yeah, I don't restrict any. I don't do that at all.
Now, like you had said, like with the vegetables and stuff like that, you know, like to eat raw, like the first part of the day. Say it's like a weekend. Can you take those vegetables and, you know, like put them in a pot and make a stew or a soup or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not like a strict, this is what you have to do at this certain time of day. It's very open, and people find a way to just kind of live this way. And that's why it's very successful, and people end up staying this way after. The majority of them do, and that's because it just becomes their lifestyle. And it's all about balance. It's all about, hey, if you have a wedding or an event or a birthday party, drink your glass of wine and have your cake and your cookies and your steak or whatever. It's not saying that you can't ever have those things, but it's all about balance, okay? It's all about, if I'm gonna eat that way sometimes, then I'm gonna eat healthy most of the time. And keeping that as your center. I tell people use the 80-20 rule. If you eat healthy 80% of the time and make the right choices, and 20% of the time you have your cake and your wine or whatever, that's a good rule of thumb. Once people come off the program, I tell them that's a good kind of way to either, number one, stay at the weight that they've lost and not gain, or continue to lose weight. Once you dip down and you start going 70-30, 60-40, well, the weight's going to start to creep back on. The illnesses are going to start to creep back on. You're going to start getting back on the medications that you just got off from what you did in the last 3 weeks. So the 80-20 rule is a good kind of, place to stay.
That's a really good tip, too.
Yeah.
Earlier, you and I had talked about like kale chips or sweet potato chips, or sweet potato chips. And are they easy to make? And are they something people should be thinking about for snacks and
They're
stuff?
great, because nowadays most people, we've become kind of a snacking society, so we eat a lot of chips and crackers and things like that. So people are always nervous about that, oh my gosh, what am I going to snack on? Organic popcorn is a great snack, wonderful snack, if you can eat corn. And things like kale chips and beet chips and sweet potato chips, those are wonderful, and they're very easy to make. They're no different than throwing a bag of all-right of French fries in the oven. It's just a matter of slicing things small, or pulling the kale leaves off of the stem, putting a little olive oil and maybe balsamic vinegar, sprinkling a little sea salt, and then putting them in the oven for 20 minutes typically, and they get nice and crispy, and you feel like you're eating potato chips. So those are great. You can take, if you like chickpeas, you can take those and kind of lay them on a cookie sheet and put those in the oven, and they come out really crunchy. They're just great, and you just pop them in your mouth. They're really wonderful. You can put a little sea salt, or if you like spicy food, you can put a little cayenne pepper on those things, kale chips or the chickpeas. And they're a wonderful, crunchy snack.
Sounds great.
They're really great.
Now, would like grapes and freezing them in the refrigerator, would that be something that?
Those are wonderful.
Yeah.
Those are wonderful. Grapes or any kind of berries, and frozen grapes. It's you just pop them in your mouth at night. They're wonderful. I'm like addicted to grapes. Frozen grapes, any kind of grapes. I love grapes. I just eat them all day long. I can't get enough of them.
They would be a great alternative to somebody that's stuck on M&Ms or something like that, So
yeah,
that would be
they
good.
really are, because it's like eating candy almost.
Yeah.
It really is. And people, I'll just say one more thing. People are always nervous about fruit. Fruit's kind of gotten a bad rap because of the sugar. So people are always thinking that if they eat too much fruit, they're going to gain weight, or if they're diabetic, they're afraid. And the sugar in fruit is a natural sugar. Okay, so number one, our body recognizes it and knows what to do with it. And all fruit has fiber. Okay, and when you have fiber in your fruit, it balances out the sugar, so you don't have that spike like what you do when you have processed sugar. Okay, you get that spike and then you crash. You don't get that with fruit, because the fiber kind of keeps it even. It might, your sugar levels might increase, but at a much slower rate. Plus, when you eat fruit is typically in and out of your body very quickly. 30 minutes,
really?
In and out. So your body doesn't have time to, your sugar levels don't have time to spike. People all the time will say, I can have bananas? Really? I can have avocados? Absolutely. Have as many as you want. They're wonderful food. And if you think about the foods in nature, and I'm only going to give you a couple examples, but you could almost look at any fruit and vegetable that nature has given us, and there is a similarity, okay? So things like, you have the carrot. You slice a carrot, and it looks like an eye. You've got the dark circle in the middle, and we all know carrots are good for our eyes.
Right.
Celery looks like bones. Celery is good for our bones. Interesting fact is that our bones are made up of 23% water, and so is celery, made up of 23% water.
Wow.
You can just go on and on. Walnuts are good for the brain, and they look like the brain. The tomato, if you cut the tomato in half, you have 4 chambers, and it's red, and tomatoes are great for our blood and our heart. So there's a lot of really similarities, and if you kind of just believe in these foods that nature gave us to eat and meant for us to eat, that's really what we're meant to have. And if you eat the majority of your diet of these things, there's nothing that your body can't achieve. Because if you have say cancer, okay, well, the body just doesn't heal what's going on with the cancer. It heals your whole body. It heals everything. And it's just a matter of, like I said earlier, giving your body the tools to do so.
Sure.
So.
No, I mean, and there's still time to visit farmers markets, because, the growing season is starting to get shorter, and, we're in danger of frost and stuff.
Yeah.
But even people could do like flower pots in their houses and grow herbs or small vegetables,
That's
so
right.
That's something they could do.
The food in the supermarket, all the food in the supermarket travels an average of 2,000 miles to get to us, every single item. Okay, so even if you're buying fruits and vegetables, if they traveled 2,000 miles to get to us, then that means that they had to pick those fruits and vegetables much before they were ripe, so that when they reach us, they're ripe. So that means a lot of nutrients are not matured yet in those items, and in transit they lose a lot of nutrients. So it's best off to shop at your farmer's market, grow your own garden. If you're going to eat meat, buy it from your local farm, so you know how the animals were treated. You know that they weren't used antibiotics and hormones. Buying local is just so important, and not just for what it does for the community, buying local, but what it does for your health and buying things. When you buy a tomato from the farmer's market, it tastes much different than it does than what you buy in the supermarket.
Oh, heavens, yes.
It's totally different.
They're much more flavorful and,
juicy,
they're very good.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And it really makes a big difference. So you do that as much as you can. And yeah, you might not be able to get everything that way. And you use the supermarket as a supplement, and you get the things there that you can't get locally, but you try to do as much local as you can, or yourself.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Well, do you have any other tips you'd like to share with our viewers today?
Well, just the last thing I can say is I just, can't stress enough how important it is to just eat clean. Eat as clean as possible, and, don't worry. It won't cost more. After a while, it won't take more time in preparation and all of that. I tell people, when you do, if you're going to make soup, if you're going to make a vegetable stir fry or a chili, anything like that, cook big, so don't just cook for this one meal. Cook big, and always have food in the fridge. I have cauliflower every morning for breakfast, and I cook 4 heads at a time. I do it with a big pot on the stove, and I keep it in the fridge, and every morning for breakfast I take a little bit off, and it takes me 2 minutes. And so you cook big. When you cook rice, cook a whole box of rice, and it stays in the fridge for a good 7 days or so. And so cook big, and you'll find that you won't be in the kitchen all the time, and just eat as clean as possible. Things with no labels on them, as much as you possibly can. Listen to your body.
Yeah. Well, I've really enjoyed sharing this time with you
great.
today, and your tips and everything, and I'm sure our viewers will find this really enlightening to them as well. And I'd like to thank you again for coming to Cat TV and sharing your expertise with everyone.
Oh, well, thanks for having me.
You're very welcome.
All about getting the word out to as many people as possible, so I
know.
appreciate being here.
Great. Well, thank you again to our audience, and we look forward to seeing you again with a new topic in a few weeks. Thank you.